A special thank you to Mrs. Shira and the Shira family for hosting us today. The Shira family truly exemplifies leadership and giving back to the community, so there's no better host for this topic in today's event. I'd like to introduce to you our four panelists, Jerome, Jack Cayre, Gladys Haddad, and Stephen Hidary. Four of our Center Powerhouse investors. Our everything. So we'll begin with a few questions that were curated by the youth, the young adults, and conversations we've been having, and then we'll open up the floor to Q&A with the group. Joey, we'll start with you. You and your family have dedicated most of your life to community service and specifically the center. I think you've been on the board and the president for probably 40 years now. What keeps you motivated?
Do I look that old?
What keeps you motivated?
The center, there's many schools, many schools. We have a lot of institutions, but we have only one center. And the center, in my opinion, attracts everybody. And it's a hub for 2-year-olds, 12-year-olds, up to 92-year-olds. So for me, to have an impact on so many people in one organization is really what drove me to being at the center and working for, I guess it's almost 40 years now. And I just think that we have a membership now of about 12,000 people. I don't think any other institution has that many people. And so our impact on the community is tremendous. And we service so many different aspects of what the community needs. And that's a driving force for me to be involved even to this day.
Beautiful. And you mentioned also when you were talking about giving back to the community as a whole. What drives you? What's your passion for Chesed, and why is that important to you?
So, we are in a house today that exemplifies what Chesed means and making time for others. Stanley Cayre, may rest in peace, was a pioneer, along with a lot of other people that are here. I could see Joe Carey, I see Jakey Casson. There are so many people that give up their time, and that is what our community is all about. Nobody has the time, you make the time. And because of them, because of the work of many people in our community, we have institutions that we have, yeshivas, mikvahs, shuls, the center, all of those institutions. Those were the byproduct of people that gave of themselves, that gave up their time for the benefit of our community. And that is the hallmark and foundation of who we are as the Sephardic community. So for me, I was just following the same path that these men went on, and it's incumbent upon the youth to know that these things happen because people give of themselves. And it starts at even your age. I started community service. I was 16 with it's called CCY, Council of Concerned Youth. There was no center, there was no meeting place, so we organized events for the youth, and we had dances and tennis tournaments and a play, and I started very young, and it was really really great to give back. You feel great doing it. You get more out of it than you put into it.
Thank you. Jack, we're going to jump into you right now. What does leadership mean to you? What inspired you to step into the leadership role as the president of our center and the many other organizations you work with?
Thank you, Morris. Also, I would like to thank local Auntie Cookie for opening up the home. You guys are amazing. Always opening up your home, not only for the center, but for so many other organizations. And I think, ties in a little bit to leadership, what it means to me and why I got involved. I think that leadership starts with role models. And in that way, I consider myself very, very fortunate. First, I'll start with my parents. My father is the most amazing person that I've ever met. And I realize more and more every day how special he is. And I would say that my mother is right up there with him. She's his partner and support in everything that he does. She's been there every step of the way, and not only supported him, but supported all of us, as we grew up. I was fortunate to have And like Joey was saying, it's very appropriate that we're here in this house. I was fortunate to have many other role models. I saw Ricky Cherub walk in here. I could say I almost grew up in this house as a second home, and I had the good fortune to be around Stanley Cayre, Abba Shalom, who, of course, is a tremendous leader, accomplished so much, and people like Morris Bailey, who I got to meet throughout my interactions with the work at the center and so many other community efforts. So I'll tell you that growing up and watching this, I noticed that these men were giants, and I looked up to them in so many ways, and for as long as I could remember. And I noticed a couple of common themes. One is these people were very, very strong, and they carried the weight of their families and of their community on their shoulders. And some might even say, in Stanley's case, he carried the weight of the country on their shoulders. They were determined and they were committed, and I already said that they were very strong, but at the same time, they were very empathetic and they cared about others. They had what it takes, and they realized that it's not about them. It's not about you and living in your own world. It's about being aware of what's going on around you, what the people around you need, caring for your community, and being an inspiring person, and in being able to inspire others, and of course being inspired by others. A couple of other things that I noticed these men had in common. One was perseverance, consistency, and they had a very, very strong work ethic. These men were obviously very successful in the community work that they did, but they were also very successful in their own lives. And that's not by accident. Right? Weekends for them didn't start on Thursday nights. They didn't grow up in a time when going to college meant you're taking 3 months off and kind of being on vacation. For as long as I could remember, my father, these men that I'm talking about, they worked hard. They woke up early. They went to the office. They were out of the house, putting in blood, sweat, tears, grinding and fighting their way through. And then they would come home after a long day, 7 or 8 p.m. to have dinner with their families. And there's a saying, I think it goes for, I know we're here to talk about leadership, kind of geared towards community organizations, but I really think it applies to every aspect of life. That the harder I work, the luckier I get. Life is about decisions. It's about making the right choices. It's about setting yourself up for success, and it really starts with the right mindset and with the right commitment. There's another saying, speaking of role models, I think the rabbis in our community today are incredible role models. I know for me, and I know, for many of you as well, that this is one of the rabbis said this, if you expect life is going to be easy, it's going to be really, really hard. But if you expect life to be hard, it's going to be really easy. So, I would say these leaders really, they showed by example, and they realized that Hashem put each one of us here for a reason, to be givers, to give to others, to work hard, to give to your family, to give back to your community, to your friends and beyond. And you're each blessed with skills and abilities. And, I would say that my advice would be to use them to do for your generation and for future generations what some of these people that we were just talking about and the previous generations have done for us.
Well said, thank you. Gladys.
Go ahead.
Always our president, our center, Gladys. What is the most valued skill set you learned as being our leader and the president of the center?
Okay, so skill set as a leader. So I would say, firstly, to always be focused on your goal, because you want to do so many different things. So you have to stay focused. So I was lucky to have Joey and Jack guiding me at the very beginning and then some. And I remember, Joey, you stated the goal very clearly. You said, Gladys, we measure our success at the center based on how many people we engage. Don't look at the numbers. You didn't want me to lose the numbers, but don't look at the numbers. But you said, and so I was clear on the goals. So we need to get people in. And then the second skill set that really became paramount to the rest of anything I was able to do and still is the art of listening. When I came into the center, right, we had to look at how we're going to bring the people in. And I'm looking at Mars. I'm not going to go in order, but I remember one of the first years we do our singles trip for Thanksgiving, sacred, something we're very proud of. The trip was set to go to Milan, and 2 weeks short of Thanksgiving, there was a terrorist attack, unfortunately. So we're not going to take the kids there. So we're probably not going to have a trip. And Mars called me. He says, we must have a trip. Mars said something. I listened. We went to Joey's office, and we strategized, like, where are we going to find a trip for these hundreds of kids 2 weeks before Thanksgiving? We ended up going to Canada. It resulted in the most couples we've ever had meet and marry. It was 8 at the time. Right? And because we listened. We listened to the people around you. I remember in the same vein, we were talking about early childhood program. Why isn't it that this specific age group, we're not getting them? The newest member of our board, and I'm going to give her credit, was Amy Patesh. And she came and she said, I think this, and it was one particular idea. And we went with it. The next semester we were sold out. And so that was also an idea of listening and listening. Now we want to bring membership in. Why aren't the people coming yet, right? Jack was amazing. He helped us build this magnificent expansion of a building. And now we have to fill it. We have to do, continue Jack's vision. And so we went out into the community in a very real way. You agreeing with me? Okay, good. You have to agree with me. And we went out into the community and we said, why, what's going to get you to come to the center? We have this magnificent building. We love it. And financially, we had to make a little tweak here and there. We went and we collaborated with all our yeshivot, our local schools. Next semester, we tripled in units. So a lot of success came from listening and being true to the information around us, true to wanting to make the center successful. So I would say a big skill set is listening. And I'll end the response with this. Why is that important? Because sometimes when you're in a leadership role, and by the way, Joey said something once that I loved. He said, we're not leaders, we're servants. Do you remember? You always say that, but I remember when you did. And so we're here to serve. And sometimes, though, when you're in the position of leadership, you think you need to know it all, but you actually don't. What you need is a great team around you and people that give you good advice and good guidance, and then you filter out, what to do and direct it that way. So I think that's a very important skill.
Stephen, being our
I got no more answers after all that.
I will extend. Being our youngest president of the center, what inspired you to get started so young, and what keeps you going?
Great question. First, I also wanted to thank the Cayres for having us. The last time we were here, last time I was here, was for Deal Stock 2 summers ago, right before Corona, and there were about 1,500 people trampling on your grass and your lawn. And
The grass looks good.
And you
It
couldn't
looks
be
much better today.
And that's exactly, and I remember seeing your son Ike that night. He was my neighbor at the time in Allenhurst, and I said, Ike, I'm sorry about the grass. He said, it's going to grow back, as long as the kids had a good time. So.
And Stephen, it was 2,500 people.
2,500. By the way, just to further plug the trip, we having a trip this year?
Of course.
Where are we going?
We're going to Prague.
Sign-ups open yet?
They're open.
Okay, good. Sarah Hidary, please make sure to sign everybody up. Okay, so back to the question, inspiration. So I think in a similar vein, for me, it really came from 2 different places. First and foremost, the home, my parents. I'm lucky and fortunate enough to have grown up surrounded by people that emphasize giving and generosity, not only giving of money, but giving of time and putting in the effort to make our community and make our world really a better place. Second inspiration, I think, back to your point as to how I got involved maybe at a younger age than some of the others, the center is very, very unique place. Joey mentioned before, it's so many different ages of people. It's so many, it's a diverse amount of people. If you look around our boardroom, right, we have people that live in different parts of the community, that come from different demographics, and that care about different things, but together as a unit, we offer probably the most unique service in the entire community. And when you have a chance to give back under that umbrella, it's special. Not everybody has that opportunity. I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity, and it was an opportunity that I just couldn't pass up on. And I remember my first board meeting as president, the three of you all there, sitting around the table, pen and paper. Okay, what do you need? And I said, I'm telling you, what do you mean? You're telling me what to do. They said, no, we're ready. Let's do it. We're a board. We're a committee. We're in this together. And when you have a group of people like that, it's special. It keeps you going. And we're all past presidents now, but that doesn't mean we're not involved. We're not on calls and in meetings and giving back. We're all involved in other organizations too. The president right here of Mag and David, the new president of Mag and David. But yet we all find the time. We'll balance our lives to give back, and I think that's a very important lesson.
So I'm just going to add one thing for you, Stephen. Right before this, Stephen was telling me, we were talking about the outreach that the center has. You said demographically in Brooklyn, New York, but then you just told me a story about Israel. Could you share that with everybody?
Okay, so happens to be your wedding week. We were fortunate enough to go to Israel, and Sherry and I were in on Ben Yehuda Street Saturday night, right before our flight back to America, and we walked into a shop. They, selling trinkets. I think we bought some kiddush cups or whatever it was, and right away the clerk behind the counter looked at us and he said, "You from Brooklyn?" "Of course I'm from Brooklyn." He said, "You Syrian?" "Yes, of course I'm Syrian." He said, "Oh, you must be from the center." And I was just elected president at the time. I said, okay, this is freaky. Who planted this guy here? Why is he saying what he's saying? And I said, yeah, actually, I am from the center. I'm involved. I volunteer my time there. He said, well, I got to tell you a crazy story. A few years ago, unfortunately, travel was restricted. There was some fighting in Israel, and we were having a really hard time. And someone from the center had reached out and wanted to put together a fair, a Ben Yehuda Street vendor fair. And we shipped containers of goods to the States, and we sold it in the gym. And I remember we thought we were going to get a container back of goods, and everything was sold out. We got back cash and money that we sorely needed at the time. And we're forever, me and my fellow store mates, we're forever grateful to the center and what this community has done. And it was amazing because here we are, thousands of miles away in foreign country, in Israel, our home, but still a foreign country, and we were making an impact to that person.
And we didn't know.
And I didn't know, and none of us did. And that's just incredible.
That's great. So we'll mix it up a little. Let's, Jack, let me go to you. You've been involved in many different community organizations. Could you give us an idea of a few of them and how experiences differed from one effort to the next, and what lessons you learned on the way?
Sure. Well, one, I think the appropriate one to start with is the center. I remember Jerome recruiting me, and what Stephen was talking about before is, 100% right. I say this in all seriousness. I had no idea what being the president of an organization was going to mean. Jerome was driving me home from the board meeting, and he started talking to me about it. And Joey, he looks so calm and soothing, but he's very persistent, he's very aggressive, in a polite way, right? It's endearing when he's pushing you. And I remember sitting while he was dropping me off, and he said, do it, and I'm going to be, I'll do whatever you need. I said, what do you need to do whatever? He said, yeah, I said, you'll be like my co-president? He goes, well, I'm not going to take the title, but for whatever you need. And it's true, he was there every step of the way. So I remember stepping into it, and you're asking some of the things that I learned along the way. So in an organization like the Center, it was already established. It was up and running for a while. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I got out of it in a big way that affected me or impacted me outside of community work was it taught me lessons in management. It asked me how. When you work in an office and you hire people, they probably like what they do, and if you're doing, if you're lucky, they like what they do, but they're not there because they like what they do. They're there because it's their parnasa and it's their paycheck, and they need to be there to earn a living. If they like what they do, it's kind of like a bonus. But that's very, very different when you're a volunteer. And our board had, close to 30 people on it. And these people, didn't need to be there. They had to want to be there. So that means that as a manager, you needed to be able to appreciate them, support them, and lead them in a way that's going to want to bring out, they're going to want to bring out the best in themselves to benefit the organization. So I worked, and I still work with another organization, very much the opposite of the, in certain ways from the center, called Teach NYS. It's the opposite because where I came into the center, it's already been around for almost 30 years and was established and running and had a structure, and it was started by giants, and all we had to do is kind of sit on their shoulders and take the helm from there. Teach NYS started from nothing. And for those of you who don't know, Teach NYS is an organization that was really founded because we were looking around at some of the one of the biggest issues facing our community and Jewish communities in general, which has been the cost of yeshiva tuition. So there were probably 6 other community leaders. I'll speed through this, but 6 other community leaders sitting around, and we hear that there's the opportunity to get a $10 million grant for yeshiva day schools. $10 million is a lot of money. Okay, we're really excited. What do we need to do? The gentleman named David Greenfield says, well, we probably could execute this plan. We need $200,000. So other skills that we had to kind of work on was going out, fundraising. Raising money is not easy. I know a bunch of you guys have done it. Some of the names, some of the faces here, I remember getting what was junior marathon calls, and you know how hard it is to raise money, right? And we have to convince people to invest. So, long story short, Baruch Hashem, we were successful. I remember we were all high-fiving each other. It was passed. We got $10 million. This is the second thing that I kind of learned from community service. Is, when I say we got $10 million for the schools, everyone feels great, right? That's a great headline. But when you divide that by 130,000 yeshiva students, it means everyone got $75. Okay, not so impactful, right? So we kind of learned there, right? Another message is you don't always judge a book by its cover. And, we live today in a world of headlines. When I was growing up, maybe you got 1 or 2 newspapers to your house. I don't know how many hours you spent looking at it. And the job of the press is to put things out there that, right, they're supposed to entertain you, scare you, motivate you, capture your attention, and you really have to dig for the truth. You guys have it a lot harder than we ever did, because where we got, the newspaper every morning, you guys are getting headlines and tweets and posts. You're getting like 1 a minute, and it's really, I think one of the lessons that I took out of this, and I would share with you, is it's really hard to find the truth, and it's incumbent upon all of us to find the truth throughout all of that noise. So I'd say that that's another thing that I learned out of that. But the last thing that I would say is that no matter how much you know, and I was probably more guilty of this than the average person. When I was growing up and I was young, I would say that one of my weaknesses, I thought I knew everything, and I thought I knew better than everybody else. And everyone could share their opinion with me, and I was opinionated, and they say the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So on this Teach NYS mission, I remember we were sitting there and we said, okay, great, we got this 10 million, let's go up to Albany. We put in our suits and ties, we're gonna walk through the halls of the Capitol, and we're gonna try to convince people to give us some more money. We get there, and we see 200 people with the signs, the poster boards, and they're demonstrating, and they were also up there for something. They were there, I mentioned this last time I saw you, they were there for homeless cats and dogs. That's what their agenda was. They were looking to get millions of dollars for homeless cats and dogs. So we turned around, learned from them, right? They were successful at what they did. The next year, we were back in Albany with 1,000 kids, a bunch of youth when you were in Mag and David, Flatbush, any other schools, you remember there was that weekday, it's probably a Tuesday, I forget which day of the week, it was a different day every time, right before budget season, and we flooded the halls of Albany, every legislator, the ones that probably hated yeshivas the most, when we walked into their room with 30 kids, and they came in with a sourpuss on their face, right away they stopped, turned around, walked out, called the photographer, sat down in front because they want to take their politicians, they want to take pictures with a whole bunch of kids. And all of a sudden they became our best friends. That $10 million a year that I was talking about grew to over $400 million this year, with $30 million coming to Irish yeshiva. So a lot of lessons that we learned along the way, definitely from being involved in these incredible organizations.
It's an amazing story, Jay. Joey, so common theme, everybody, myself included, is attributing our volunteer, their presidencies to you, right? To you sitting there, cornering them in their car or in a meeting and telling them, you're going to be president.
Joey's like the Undertaker. If you see him coming, run the other way.
Don't lock the car door. What is your proudest accomplishment during your tenure at the center?
I have two that I can tell you about. The first one, and the most important one, is the people sitting next to me. Jack, Gladys, Jack, and Stephen. And to bring the center forward, and Ricky for that matter too, to bring the center forward, you have to have new, fresh ideas. And just because we did something 2, 3, 4 years ago, 10 years ago, doesn't mean it works today. So to keep the center relevant and to keep the center current, you have to move on, and you have to, give the baton over to the next administration. So for me, one of my greatest accomplishments is having these people, these great leaders, take the reins at the center and bring it to where it is today. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, my greatest accomplishment. The second one, we go back many years ago. It was, I would say it's about 30 years ago, and people were taking the center for granted. It was there. People said, okay, maybe we needed it, maybe it'll come, maybe we won't. And at the time, I was elected president. The first thing I did was a major event at Jojo and Terry Shaheba's house. And all I wanted to do there was show the importance of the center so people would realize how integral and how important it is for our community to have the center. And to raise the level of importance in giving when we asked people for money for the center. Because people said, oh, it's just a place to play basketball, and they didn't even take it seriously. So at that event, we had 200 or 300 people. It was a great attendance. And we showed a video. And what did we show? We showed the basketball court at the center, and then we showed kids going through a fence in some basketball court at the back of Lincoln High School. We showed our beautiful senior citizens that we take care of every day, and then we showed senior citizens sitting on a bench on Ocean Parkway. So we showed all these narratives of different, this is what happens today because of the center, and this is where we would be if it were not for the center. And after that, we didn't raise a dollar. It wasn't a fundraiser. It was making people more aware about the center. And it was the first time it was really ever done. It was always, you go to these things and there's a video and you see all the accomplishments and then they ask you for money. This was not about the money for that night. But what happened from that event is that people said, wow, we didn't know the center did this. We didn't know they did that. And it was really, it started on a path of saying, wow, the center is an integral part of the community, so we really have to support it. And I'm proud to say that our annual campaign, when I took it over, was $400,000. When I left, it was $1.5 million because the community realized how important the center was to the community and how it impacts so many people in the community. So for me, besides having this unbelievable leadership next to me, and those are, as I look back, I was fortunate enough to have those accomplishments.
Roach Motel.
I tell them all, when you come to the center, it's like Roach Motel. You check in, but you never check out. 40 years later, here I am.
That 40 years really means something. Gladys, being the first female president of the Center of Mag and David. It predominantly was a largely male-oriented board and leadership. What obstacles did you face, and were you ever intimidated?
What obstacles did I face? I could say none. I think that, and was I ever intimidated? No. Firstly, I'm very grateful for the parents that I had who really, as I get older and I'm an adult, I keep saying, I don't know, they raised me to think that I could do everything. So there was never anything.
But you can.
Right. I'm just saying everybody can. But it was just, I was raised to think. I was raised to care. And when you care and you want to make a difference, nothing could really intimidate you because you feel passionate and you feel like you're doing the right thing. I will say that when I was president of the PTA in Mag and David, it was my first meeting, and there were some veteran moms there, and there was an idea that I had that I really wanted to do. And they were heckling on the other side of the table. And inside, I was like, oh my gosh, they don't like this idea. And I grew a little bit insecure, and I said, wait, right now, right here, I have to make a decision. I'm either going to let them take me over, or I really like what I'm doing. I like this idea. And I ignored them. I resolved, I said, maybe you tried to do this particular thing, but you didn't try it my way. And we had the event, and it was great. Sent them 2 invitations to it, by the way. But not to be like that. But my message is really, and especially as a woman, sometimes people will say, you can't do it, you can't do it. And the truth is, maybe they really can't do it. You have to believe that you may be unique. Hashem blesses each and every one of us with a certain talent and a certain strength. And so really someone in their best of intentions will say, don't do it, we tried it. And if you really believe in something, you should do it. And I'll say that the center was the #1 platform and field for me to grow, to learn, to not be intimidated, to be encouraged. It was just from 12 years old, I began at the center. And since then, it's just you go where you need it. And I think I give all the credit, not only, of course, to my parents, but to the center and to the atmosphere and the culture that they provided. And Morris, we talked about this story about the letters, right? You like that one?
Yes, I did.
So,
I was sticking my hand in my pocket waiting for you to say.
waiting for you to say, okay. So they say that a great person has 2 letters in either side of their pocket. The first letter says that God created me to be great, and there's something I'm great at, and I have to use that talent to better the world, to better the society, to better myself. And you really should feel great about yourself and what you were blessed with. On the other side of the pocket, you're supposed to say, I'm but the dust of the earth. And there's a certain humility that you're supposed to have and understand that there's something greater, and everything you have, thank Hashem for. Balancing those 2 things is the trick. And I think when you talk about being intimidated, or it's not about being intimidated, it's being true to what you want to do and going with it, and don't let anybody stop you. At the same time, be humble enough to learn, to stop, to listen, to self-reflect.
I love that story.
You love
Second,
that?
I wanted to say, and clarify one thing for Gladys, and that's for the young ladies that are here today. The center is not run by men. They're run by the women. They're run by the mothers and the daughters of this community, because they know what the programs and things that we have to offer. So when you talk about, raising money, and that always falls on the men, the women have run the center consistently for 40 years. So when Gladys came into that position of president, it was a natural fit, and she took the center to a level that we haven't seen in many years. And I attribute that because of her being a woman, and I think that we have to recognize that women are just as important as men in community service, especially at the center.
And so many women were on the board prior to me that I was able to, I remember sitting next to Ida and Shifra's here, and there's just so many women that it was easy to learn from and to feel very comfortable to be in that atmosphere.
Great.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
One day, I got a call for Simha. She told me we have a problem at the center. So I said,
Gladys
what's
is
the
the
problem? So she says, we had at the center, we rented out this place on the first level. And one day, some people came in, they weren't doing the right business. They destroyed the entire first floor of the center, our property. She says, I'm very upset about it. I spoke to Joey, I spoke to Jack, and there's a $65,000, $68,000, the damage. So the men said, forget about it, we'll fix it up, no problem. Simha, on the other hand, says, I can't do this. I just cannot accept this. So I said, what are you going to do? She said, I'm going to speak to these people, tell them that they have to pay us the money. So what did they do? They said, no, we didn't do it. Simha says, no, we have a video. We saw you guys do it. You did it. He says, well, no, it wasn't us. She says, you did do it. He calls back again. He says, let's make a compromise. Simha says, there's no compromise. She says to him, there's two words I have for you. Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur. What happens then? She calls me back. She says, they still didn't do anything. They still didn't rectify the problem. So I told Simha, you know what? Call him up. If he calls you the next time, just tell him you're going to throw the book at him. 2 weeks later, she gets a check for $68,000. So then she always tells her friend, 2 weeks ago, my father told me to tell him to throw the book at them, but I don't know what book he's talking about. And that's a person that has perseverance, and everybody should learn from that you don't give up. You're a leader. If you look at all our leaders in the Jewish nations, you notice that, I told this to the children recently, that when you talk to, let's say, Moses, you don't say Rabbi Moses, you say Moshe, and then you say Rabben. You talk to about Yehoshua, the leader, Eli, the Kohen, Eliyahu, Hanavi. What are you saying? You're saying the name first, and secondly, you're saying the title. Meaning what? The man or the woman, they make the title. The title does not make the person. So a person that accomplishes in their lifetime things, they're going to be the woman and the man that are the ones that actually make their title. So I thought I'd like to share this with you, and I hope all you people become future leaders.
On that point, would love for either some of the adults that we've mentioned up here, if they have any words of wisdom or something they'd like to share, or if anybody has a question for one of our panelists, please let us know. If not, I can jump in. Jacob, Jerome. Jacob, who is it geared towards?
Play was not geared towards.
It's not a roast.
He knows the answer already.
I do.
Hey guys, so I just had a quick question. So it's very easy for the younger generation, even the old generation, to say, I don't have the time. You guys are all very busy between business and personal life. And for us and for a lot of people I'm friendly with, what was that X factor that said, you know what, I'm going to make the time to actually go and spend my time and do it? Because honestly, it's the excuse that I don't have time is such an easy one to throw out there. And I feel like I've done it, a lot of other people have done it. But what to you guys was like the motivating factor to give you time and really
Stephen's going to answer it, but before he's answered, I'm going to tell you one thing. I learned it from someone who told me many years ago. Nobody has the time. You make the time. And when you make the time, things happen. And I said before, people didn't have the time, they made the time, and we have the institutions we have today because of those people.
So before Joey mentioned the CCY, which was a precursor to the center, and before that there was a kind of center at Beth Dean's, 50 Avenue P, right? The original Mag & David building. So they used to produce a newsletter. So Gladys, about 6 years ago, you sent me a copy of the newsletter from the 1940s. Why'd you send it to me? It was a 4-page newsletter, and on the cover they were talking about how to attract new members into their programming. They had a bowling alley and some other events. And there was a whole article about what they were going to do to attract the members. And it said they're going to go door to door and knock and find all the young adults. And leading the charge was a young boy by the name of Abraham Hidary, who was my grandfather. So I read that. It's like, wow, that's crazy. If if my grandfather and so many like him at that time didn't put in the effort, then the next generation doesn't benefit. So back to your question, talking about time, everybody needs to balance their lives. You need to be organized, you need to be focused, and when you find that, you find the time. Because none of us have the time. When you find that time and you're giving back, you're not giving back to yourself. You're giving back to the next generation. My daughter's here, she's 10, she's going to 5th grade this year. So proud of you. But we didn't give in for us, we gave it in for them. So look at the prize, look at what you're getting. And when you look at that, suddenly your calendar frees up. You could attend to the meeting, you could help run the event, you could go to the fundraiser. And who are you doing it for? You're doing it for the next generation. What's better than that?
I also want to add that, of course, you want to make the time when you feel good about something, but a few skills is you prioritize for real, because it does get taxing. There are times where it's really, really busy and not. So writing things down, even this morning I'm looking at my calendar, but you want to prioritize what I need to do now, what I could save for after the holiday. So there's a skill set there. And second to that is delegating. So you want to do everything, but it's very important to delegate. And again, it's about the team that you have around you, using them to accomplish goals. That's not only in charity, that's in business, that's in anything.
To add to that, one thing that I heard that really stuck with me when I was younger is if you want to get something done, give it to somebody who's busy. There are always people that could come up, like you were saying, Jacob, with excuses, why they can't do it, why they can't find the time. If Stanley Cayre, who's talking to the president, could find the time to stand up in front of a room on a Sunday morning and raise money for the well, or to sit with a couple that's struggling to trying to work through something else, what excuses do we have to say we don't have the time?
I'm gonna end off one thing. There's no better feeling walking into a room or seeing a product of your community service and giving back. To know that you were this much involved in making other people's lives better is the most enriching feeling you will ever have in your life.
Yeah.
I want to make, are we getting ready to wrap up?
No, please. I want you to go through.
Question?
No, just on that point that Joey said, Jack, how does giving impact the giver? And what advice would you
That's
give?
exactly what I was going to touch on, so I'm happy you asked. So we keep hearing giving, right? And it sounds very selfless. So I'll tell you what I got out of the center in particular. My kids went there. I remember growing up there. I formed my friendships there when there was this really cute girl that was in a fashion show. Sarah was cracking up in the back of the room.
Tell us the story. Come on, tell us the story.
Shabbat's coming another time. But yes, Gladys gets an assist on this one. But that's where I went. I was hanging out my wife there, and ultimately wind up married, but the love of my life. My kids went to the Sunday programs there. There's a lot that we got out of the center. And I'll tell you something that was actually one of the quotes that Sarah told me, and I really think it's very true. When you're involved in work like you're doing for organizations, you're put in a lot of situations, and situations that force you to grow. So many people pray for Hashem to change their situation, and sometimes we need to realize that Hashem put us in the situation in order to change us, right? So, we're talking a lot about giving and how selfless it is. But the truth is, it, in a way, is the most selfish thing that you could do. What do I mean by that? Anyone that's worked on a chesed program, or anyone that's done something good for somebody, from the smallest things, smiling at somebody that's having a bad day, to making, having a life-changing impact on someone, you get a feeling inside. People say sometimes you're high on life. There's no better high on life feeling than giving and doing for others. It's just it is the most selfish thing that you could do, and it's counterintuitive, right? I'm giving, but I'm getting more than I'm giving. I think even maybe it's a parallel in the Torah. It says that Hashem, the one place He says test me is with tzedakah. He says, I'm commanding you to test me. The more you give, the more you're gonna get, and it really works like that. In my experience.
Matan and Natan. Natan is to give. Matan.
It always helps to have a casting up
I'm
here.
just saying.
So a couple Simcha. So a couple of things that I would say, to the end of
Gotta
the
change the
question.
stationery.
On it,
Oh, we're definitely changing the station.
so a couple of things on the point of what advice I would give. So first is I would recognize and appreciate how lucky we are that we live in this community, and what makes our community great is how giving we are and how we take care of each other. And I would remember that we're here to give. Like Gladys said, Hashem gave each one of us abilities and each one of us gifts. Some of us give with money, some of us give with time, some of us are capable of thinking that we're doing certain things, and I can promise you one thing, you're all capable of much more than what you think you are, and you should push yourself. The other thing is, you should focus on yourself. This is more than just leadership for Chesed and for other organizations. Focus on building yourself. And part of that is and has to be giving of yourself. The more you give, the more you get. And focus on your goals. If at first it doesn't work out, they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. Remember what we were saying before about some of the great leaders from before us. Stay consistent, stay determined, and put your best into everything that you do. And last but not least, make the decision right now to be a leader. Get more involved in community service. Get on a board, get on a committee, get involved with a charity, several charities. Start out right now to be selfish in being the most selfless person that you could be.
Morris, can I say something about before that I just wanted to say? So, because I see a lot of young ladies in the audience. So, you asked me about being intimidated and keep growing. And I think something that we all have in common is we have great spouses. Like you were saying about Sarah, that's why I thought of it. I remember when Joey...
Sarah, I think you should stand up for
I think you should say that. I'm Richie and Esther and Jack. But I remember when Joey and Jack asked me to be president, and again, at the time, like, women just didn't do that. And I came home, and I for sure thought I wasn't going to do it. And then I was like, Rich, Joey and Jack just asked me to be president of the center. He says, good. I go, what do you mean I should do it? He goes, why not? And just like that, such an encouraging spouse. So it's really great that when you do have a talent, that you have that partner that's always going to encourage you. And I would say I couldn't do anything or be at any point without my husband. So it really is something to... Thank you.
I told my wife I wanted to say something, and she said, please don't. But really, just 2 minutes. I know everybody wants to leave. So I grew up on...
He worked it. That's the encouragement she was talking about.
That's
He
how I
worked
wanted
it.
to say.
Okay.
I grew up on Avenue West and East 9th, and the center being on S and Coney. So maybe from 8 or 9 years old, I could literally tell you I was probably in the center 7 days a week. You guys were open Saturday nights, you were open Sundays, you were open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays. And I can't even tell you how much we enjoyed, or I enjoyed with my friends going there every single night. And how much you guys gave back to us with the old, before the extension, before you guys did with the basketball leagues. And yes, I worked in the center maybe 5 nights a week doing the books. I met a lot of people. And I can tell you right off the bat, you probably kept a lot of people, not me, but you kept a lot of people off the streets. Where it was a Saturday night where people I know wanted to go to the city, they said, let's go play ball. And they're like, you know what, we're tired, we're not going to go. And it was really, you guys have done so much more than what other people can give you, including myself. And the joy that I get when my kids, when they go to the center now, how I see them and how now, like Sunday programs coming, I registered them for 3 of them, Friday afternoon. And it's just such a pleasure. So summer nights, summer camps, really thank you guys. And just keep going at it.
I believe that. I believe we exist as a community because the center's got our back. So,
Great.
Abby.
Second row.
Victoria.
Okay. How do you work full time and still be ahead of a massive organization?
I'm going to tell you the same thing I said before. I have, mashallah, three boys and 2 girls. I have a big family, and I used to work very hard. But like I said, I made time. You just make time. and you know, prioritize your time, like Jack said, to make sure that you give back to the community, because our forefathers did that, you know, the people I mentioned. So, like I said, you organize yourself, you really have the time. If you have an hour a night, if you have a half hour a night, just to do something to help others, there's nobody that doesn't have the ability to make the time.
Can I answer that question by another question? It's now pointed towards you, over here. Have you ever checked your screen time? 9 hours, 10 hours? How much Netflix do we watch or binge watch? We have time, right? We have time.
I'd like to say a few words. I just walked in, but I didn't just walk into this community, as you can see. So, by the way, that center on Avenue P, I went to that center. I played bowling. I bowled in that bowling alley with little duck pins, and Charlie Sacker may be well. He was the duck boy. So I go back quite some time. And looking at this crowd, what I see is the foundation of the next generation coming up. Everyone here is a brick. Don't take that the wrong way, but you're all bricks. And this foundation, you can see this is the generation that already laid some foundations, and you guys here is the next level coming up. So with a strong foundation is what this community is all about. And by the way, I'd let you into that Sarah situation, by the way, in case you didn't know.
But I get credit.
Always
right?
get friendly
What's
with
that?
the father-in-law.
Anyway, keep going, keep building, because that's what this community is all about.
Questions?
Yes.
Thank you for having us, guys. I'm sure you as presidents in leadership positions have people who didn't agree with you. You couldn't please everyone at the same time. What would you do to make sure that, how'd you deal with that?
You hire them, you bring them part of your team.
Even if they're on the committee?
Absolutely. You have to welcome all opinions in order to grow. If we all thought the same and you only want like-minded people, you only see through one lens. What good is that? So it's especially those people that you want to bring on. They're the people that help you grow and let you see things that maybe you didn't see. It happens all the time.
When you're on a committee and people get together, they don't agree. But what's the strength of a committee? Once you make the decision, you understand what other people's opinions are. Okay? You say, okay, we're going to do this thing. Once that decision's made, you leave that room and you're part of the team. And you just go with what the decision that was made, even though you may not have agreed to it. I'm telling you that there must be hundreds of times that things that I thought were right, that I wanted to do, that people disagree with. But I respected them. They're volunteers. They don't have to be there. But they're giving up their time and they're giving their opinion. And the people around the table make the decision. And once that's made, you go with it. You don't always have 100% consensus.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question? Cynthia?
I think the pizza bagel is so good.
It's a trick. Only Harry knows the trick. The pizza bagels and the melted Hershey's.
Exactly. The white sauce and melted Hershey's.
White chocolate and melted Hershey's. And that was in your day. In our day, it was the fat-free muffins where the oil actually seeped through the brown bag. I remember those muffins. Santa has some special stuff, some magical
We still have
stuff.
the pizza bagels in the freezer in the basement.
They are there.
So if you want a box, let us know.
Harry hoards them.
1997.
Excuse me, guys, I gotta leave, but I want to leave you with one profound statement, and that is I heard from somebody a few weeks ago. It says, it's not where you're holding, it's where you're heading. So that's where you all need to be thinking about, where you're heading, not what you're holding right now.
And I just wanted to say, if there's anything anybody ever is thinking of doing, use the center, because we're always the stepping stone. It's an easy place to get your feet wet. Countless amounts of businesses started just by volunteering, getting the skills they needed, or even the exposure needed. So use the center all the time. It's like Joey said and started out, it's really for everybody. We're here for everybody.
And the four of us, I can tell you, are here for anybody that wants to call and then get some information or some advice. We are here to really help you. Did you have a question, young man?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, brothers, you brothers. Okay.
Separate us so you would trick us.
We're smooth like that. So, our community, thank God, is very big. We have a lot of different demographics, and like you said, there's a lot of challenges in making sure you get everybody involved. You brought up that example where you had a certain age group where you guys saw you weren't targeting, and then the next event, you made it happen. You actually pulled that age group and had them get involved. So the question is, how did you do that? How do you make sure you're staying relevant throughout the times, and how do you make sure you're hitting every demographic of the community to make sure they're all taking part in the center?
It's really one thing. Having the right volunteers on your committees. Having those people direct what does the community want? What's the needs of the community? Whether it be when my children were going there, or Jack's kids were going there, or Gladys or Stephen. So to stay relevant, like I said, you have to change. You have to have new people on the committee. You have to have a future, looking to the future and seeing what do we need. So when you have those people around you and you have those great volunteers, they tell you this is what we need to do. This is what the demographic wants, and that's what happened with that situation. Someone that knew of that demographic said, "Look, if we do this instead of this, we can really advance." And I'll just tell one quick thing about getting maximum participation. We had a ski trip one year. We charged like $100, and we made $10 a head. We got 20 kids to come. The next year we did it. There was somebody was on the board that said, "Look, you think $10 doesn't mean anything, but it means something to a lot of people. So instead of charging $100 the next year, because this young lady told us about it, we charged $90. It's exactly what it cost. We had 200 kids. So because that person stepped up and told us what we needed to do, because we didn't know, it resulted in having this unbelievable trip with so many more people, because that's what we're about at the center. Knowing what people want and trying to get as many people involved as possible. But that you can say for any organization, having the right volunteers.
Thank you.
And on that note, if nobody else has a question, sorry.
One more.
Hello.
My mama.
I want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. And although you presidents are fabulous, none of you could cook a Shabbat meal like Gladys.
You mean Simcha?
Oh, Simcha.
Okay. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.